This week's parsha is Parshat Vayetze, and it's picking up from when Yaakov is running away from Esav after he received the brachas, after Yaakov received the brachas. So we see the very first pasuk says, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Haran. Right? Jacob departed from Beersheva and went toward Haran. And Rashi picks up on this, and he has a lot to say. Why? Again, we know that Rashi doesn't just, write to give us beautiful divrei Torah. He writes to solve textual difficulties. There's a problem in the pshat, in the simple reading of the pasuk. Now, what's the problem? So if we just turn back to the end of last week's parsha, we'll see in the Maftir, that is chapter 28, verse 7, right? And that Jacob obeyed his father and mother and went to Padan Aram. So we see that Yaakov has already left Beersheba, right? He's already on his way. So why does this pasuk here at the beginning of our parsha need to say, Yaakov, he left Beersheba? We get it. We already know that. And that's what Rashi says. If we skip the first Rashi and go to the second one, that the first one is Vayetze Yaakov, the second is just Vayetze. So says Rashi, the pasuk should have only needed to say, and Yaakov went to Haran. Why did it talk about him leaving? Rather, it's to tell us that when a tzaddik leaves a place, it makes an impression. Because when a tzaddik leaves a city, it's hod, it's ziv, it's hadar. We need to speak about what those words mean. I guess ArtScroll translated as, its glory, its splendor, etc. Yatzamisham, when a tzaddik leaves, Yatzamisham, pana hoda, pana ziva, pana hadara. When a tzaddik leaves a city, its hod leaves, its ziv leaves, and its hadar leaves. That's what Rashi says. And he's quoting a midrash, as far as I understand. So, Rabbi Gershenfeld comments about this, and he's speaking about the Maharal. So what does this Rashi mean? First, why do we need three different words to tell us? And moreover, there's another question. What's so special about, Vayetze Yaakov here? As in, not to say what's so special about Yaakov, but why does Rashi need to comment about this specifically with regards to Yaakov? After all, we know that Avraham left the city, and Rashi didn't say that there. He didn't say that Avram was the hod and the ziv and the hadar of the city that he left. Why didn't it say that? And by way of answering, that's because there's something that is fundamentally different with Avram's leaving and Yaakov's leaving. When Avram left the city, who are the other tzaddikim there? Nobody. Avram was unique. He was the Ivri. He stood on the one side of the world, and everyone else stood on the other side. He's unique. When he left the city, that's pretty much all there was to the city, and therefore, of course, there's no chiddush there. Of course, that it's hod and hadar and ziv left. But Yaakov left Beersheba. Yaakov left his parents. His parents are Yitzchak and Rivka. That's one of the Avot and one of the Imahot. Now we have something fascinating, because Rashi is telling us when Yaakov leaves the city, right? What does he say? That's true even with Yitzchak and Rivka still in the city. That is a huge chiddush, and that's why Rashi specifically brings it here. It's not a chiddush to say that when Avram leaves the city and he's the only tzaddik there, of course the city is completely changed. But to teach us that even when there are a number of tzaddikim in a city, and one of them leaves, and it makes an impression even then, that's a huge chiddush. And just to elaborate, why is it such a chiddush? What do we learn about the fact that, Yaakov, he left, it made an impression, in what way? So Rabbi Gershenfeld says, and he's quoting the Maharal, that's because not all tzaddikim are the same. Often when we think of a tzaddik, we're like, he's, a very holy guy, big beard, does a lot of nice things, learns a lot, prays a lot, I guess, and they're pretty much all the same. They all look the same, they all dress the same, there's nothing particularly different about them. But when a person really becomes close to a tzaddik, then you really get a sense of his particular nuances. And when you see a different tzaddik, we're talking about completely different people. And obviously, nowadays, it's important to have a frame of reference, but let's just say back in the day. Let's just talk about the Avot even. Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov are very, very different people. Moshe and Aaron, right? Moshe, the Melech, the Navi, Moshe Rabbeinu, and Aaron a Kohen, two completely different people. Or David and his son Shlomo, two completely different people. Whenever we see these tzaddikim, even in the same generation, they're very, very different. But now, how are they different? How do we see that? And how does this Rashi bring it out? It's the hod and the ziv and the hadar. What does that mean? So says the Maharal, they're all referencing three different midas. That is to say, we know from the second mission in the first parak of Perek Avot that says, Shimon HaTzadik Meshari Knesset Gadola. Right, Shimon HaTzadik was one of the last men of the Great Assembly. Who would say, on three things the world stands: al Torah, vel avoda, vel gmilut chasadim. On Torah, on avoda, right, on our prayer, our relationship to God, vel gmilut chasadim. And those three things represent the three ways we relate to the world. Torah, ala Torah, is our relationship with ourselves, where we belong in this world. What are we trying to do? It's our ability to think deeply and relate deeply to the world and understand our place in the world. Avoda is our relationship to God, right? That's prayer, that's service, that's bringing the korban on the Beit HaMikdash, when the Beit HaMikdash is standing. It should be b'mehera v'yameinu. And the last one is gmilut chasadim, obviously acts of loving kindness, which is what we do for other people. That's our interpersonal relationships with others in the world. And so those three things, and this is what these three words are coming to symbolize. Hu hoda, hu ziva, hu hadara, hod. That comes from hodu lashem kitov. It's our ability to give thanks, right? To recognize the fact that there is somebody else outside of us. That's our relationship to God. And so we see a tzaddik needs to be a very versatile person. It's not enough to be a kind of a one-note wonder. It's interesting to note that when a person doesn't really care about something, then whatever, he's good at whatever he does. So for example, I happen to like writing, but it's like, yeah, he's a good writer, he puts together sentences nicely, I guess. But there's so much more to it. First, there's, of course, obviously you have to be a good writer. You need to understand the rules of grammar. But also you need to know when to warp it. I believe one of Mark Twain's big, novelties in the world of novel writing is the fact that he had his characters write colloquially, in the terms of the way people actually speak in slang. That was very different for back in the day. Usually when people would write, they write very formally, but that's not the way people actually speak. So Mark Twain effectively brought this chiddush out into the novel writing world. So there's a lot to it. How do you write your dialogue? How do you string together sentences? How do you plot a story? How do you introduce characters? Do you understand that people think differently than you? And are you able to articulate that well so that your characters are believable? There's so much going on. Or perhaps more relatably, in the world of sports. I don't care about sports. So when a person is speaking to me about his batting average is a .03, I don't care. He's a great basketball player, that's fine. Or a baseball player, that's great. But a person who cares about basketball, it's like, what are you talking about? Do you see his average for shooting three-pointers? Do you see his able to do turnovers? Do you know how well he passes, his assists, the way he dribbles, the way he moves his way around the court, his defensive plays? When a person knows how good when a person really cares about something, like say basketball, they understand that to be a great basketball player, it's so multifaceted. There's so many things going on. It's the exact same thing, or lahavdil, right? But it's very similar with regards to a tzaddik. Being a tzaddik is not a one-note wonder. The hod, right? He was hoda. That's his relationship with God. But there are other things. Huziva, his ziv. Ziv means sparkling, right? The splendor, this kind of light. The ziva panim is like the radiance from the face. That, often we speak about Torah as de oraita, which means from the light, from the Torah, right? That's what Torah is called, oraita. And so we see that Yaakov also had that going on. He had ziva, right? Huziva, he was the glory of the city in terms of he was also well connected within himself. He had a good understanding, a deep understanding of his role in the world and what he was supposed to be doing. And then finally, Hadara. Hadar comes from, Pri Etz Hadar. It's something beautiful. It's the way it looks on the outside. Whenever we talk about a Hidur mitzvah, right, that's talking about something, how does that look outside the world? It's not about, does it have any pagams? It means, how does it look? For example, let's just say we're talking about an etrog, which is the Pri Etz Hadar. It's two different things to say, I want it to be as mehudar, as beautiful as possible, because that's how it looks on the outside. It's different to say, I want to make sure it has no pagams. In that case, then you can start taking a microscope and taking a close look to your etrog. Because if all you care about is hidur, then nobody else can see the little microscopic holes or black spots on your etrog. But if you care about the pagam, then that's something else. And so we see when we're talking about hadar, right, we're talking about something beautiful, that's our relationship to other people. So you see Yaakov has all three things. He's hoda, right? He has a relationship to God. He's ziva, right? He has a relationship to himself through his Torah. He's hadara, right? He also he looks well out into the world. He has a nice iron shirt. he's presentable, his hair is cut, he's well groomed, unlike me. But the point is, all of those things are applicable to Yaakov, and that's what and that's how he goes through the world. And that's what Rashi and the Maharal, really through Rashi, is coming to elucidate. That's what this Midrash is talking about, and it gives you these three words. These aren't three of the same words. They're not the three same words. It's just nice ways, the synonyms, to kind of really emphasize how wonderful Yaakov was. No, there are two things going on. First, that just because there are other tzaddikim in a city does not mean that that one tzaddik leaving is the same city. It doesn't really matter. No, the city is completely changed. But then second, that there's so many aspects to being a tzaddik. It's not just a one-note wonder. There are many things going on. And then finally, notice how Rashi explicitly says that when a tzaddik leaves, then the glory and the splendor of the city leave, right? The Hod and the Ziv and the Hadar. That just goes to show that, when, as Jews, when we look at a city, we're not supposed to look at all those skyscrapers. Wow, they're so tall, they're so beautiful, they're so beautifully shaped architecturally. When we think of a city, we need to think like, who are the people who live here? Person goes to Beit Vagan, that's where Moshe Shapiro lived. Person goes to, I believe, the Lower East Side, that's where Moshe Feinstein lived. Monsey, that's where Yaakov Kamenetsky lived. In Har Nov, that's where Rabbi Ovadia Yosef lived. When we think of a city, we need to think, like, what makes a city beautiful, what makes a city truly glorious, is the fact that we have tzaddikim that live there. We'll leave it there. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you next week.